shit that we on. We on. This shit that we on. Get the shit that we do. Claim niggas an animal, come riding out like the zoo. Caged up, let us loose. Caged up, let us loose.
Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check.
Check.
Mic check, 1 2 1.
Yeah.
Mic check 1 2.
Wake up, my people, this shit can happen to you.
Mic check 1 2 1 2. Multiple beat subject of discussion. We can do this with the aid of percussion.
Okay.
No category for this story.
That's right.
Mic check.
This shit that we on.
David Ruffin in the house.
We on. This shit that we on. We on. This shit that we on. We on. This shit that we
ain't trying to just sit around and get about everything we going through. Ain't trying to live life and thank God like who the fuck is you? Ain't trying to feel years on earth. I done shed blood, shed tears on dirt. Fighting these fools trying to smear my worth. On a set trip trying to clear my turf. Who are you? What am I? I'm confused. We must wanna die. We killing ourselves as a mother cries. Cops killing our brothers, they killing our brothers, and I know why. They got us killing ourselves, that ain't no lie. Look, let me break it down for you. First slave master, next employee. No 40 acre, no mule, no noise. Them type of eyes where the God destroys. Blood pressure makes diamonds, we shine and grind and we reach our goals. Searching for worth without selling soul.
This the shit that we on. This the shit that we on. We on. This shit that we on. We on. This the shit that we on. We on. Yeah, push to the side. This to the side. They take niggas' lives, kill niggas' pride. Situations get minimized. Criminal history emphasized. On the victim, they penalized. Officers don't get penalized. Big business is an enterprise. Social media, they hypnotize. That's what people don't realize. Jail and slavery, the same thing. Gotta look at what it symbolized. Still going through the same pain. About time that we improvise. Should we Nat Turner or Dr. King? Should we rise up or live the dream? Should we stay quiet, don't make a scene? Go Malcolm X by any means. Pick a sides, no in between. Nigga, pick a sides, no in between. Yeah. We on. This shit we on. We on. This shit we on. We on. This shit we on. We on. This shit we
Yo, what's happening, people? Y'all know what it is. It is Tuesday, so it is time for Classic Conversations with JT and Lo. I am JT, he is Lo. I am me, and he is him. That's what we're doing right now. Listen, people. Last week, we got had a great conversation last week, and this week, we're going to jump right into it. The main thing about this show tonight is going to be about accountability. I had a lot of people hit me up after the show was over. I need for you people to give us a telephone call if you're watching us, 404-500-1605.
Got it right.
I know, right? Took like 5 shows to get that done. Boy, it took like 5 shows to get it right. So, but first we're gonna, let y'all know we got some special guests in the house tonight. We got my man MJ from last week. We're gonna let him talk about himself. But hey, man, boy, I got some people in here tonight. Only man in the world that can make me put on a onesie.
Yeah. That's it.
These dudes had me going viral with a onesie on. Telling you something, man. But Yeah, so MJ, go on tell everybody about yourself, man. Let them know what you did. Just like you did last week. Don't be scared this week. Go on, let them know everything that you did.
He only 1 cup in.
He said everything.
He only 1 cup in.
1 cup in this week. 30-year vet, Atlanta Police Department, recently retired. Career ran the gamut, started off in Zone 1. Went to original Red Dog supervisor, narcotics investigator, DA, FBI task force, GBI task force, FBI task force again, ran the FBI APD gang unit. What else did I do? Let's see. Continued on, but back to drugs again. And then I picked up sergeant, lieutenant, and then I was also SWAT commander and ran CSU unit for Zone 1.
Y'all didn't tell me I was going to have 5-0 up in here. I'm out.
Yeah. Look uncomfortable.
So
Y'all didn't hear what he said when he said he picked up drugs again?
Right. Yeah.
Slide that in there.
So like I said, this young man, he has a lot of different point of views from that blue side.
Yeah.
A lot of them from a couple of different angles. Oh boy, I don't even know how to introduce these fellas. I mean, the Daily Jam is in the house, y'all.
Yes, sir.
What's going on?
Daily Jam, y'all give it up for the Daily Jam. We're gonna start over here with Mr. 8 Hour. Go ahead, introduce
Knock
yourself.
it off.
Go ahead and introduce yourself, my brother.
Yo, what's up, good people? It's good to be back. Thank you for the invite again. I'm Michael Andre. Glad to be up in the house with Classic Conversations, man. It's good stuff. I brought 2 friends along, though.
And I brought 2 friends along.
Hey, so next on the mic. We did that earlier today.
We did this earlier. And I went on with the whole rap. I'm gonna hit the dip, the ladies, the women fight for my delight.
It is.
We was live because we were doing a show earlier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was crazy.
Let's go ahead and introduce yourself, brother.
Jamal Callahan, Columbus, Ohio. Of course, you know I gotta rep my Buckeyes everywhere I go.
I.O.
Another part 2 of the Daily Jam.
And the best part. Oh, you talking about me?
Nah, not at all. Part 2 of the Daily Jam. You know, we do a lot of motivating throughout the country. We do a lot of things when it comes to child welfare strategy. So we see a lot of the young people that are affected, or have been affected by Breonna Taylor and everything that's been happening in the U.S. Of recent. So, yeah, we could definitely touch base from the child welfare side.
For sure.
Go
Well,
ahead,
ladies
sir.
and gentlemen, the best for last. This is your boy, truly, Adrian McLemore. I just got to say, I appreciate JT having us back because after he was on our podcast, I was afraid that him and I weren't going to be friends anymore. You know, JT and I went a couple of rounds when he was on our show.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That's why he got you off camera.
But I really am happy to be a part of this. We try to tune in as much as we can to the show, and we actually like listening to Classic Conversations. So appreciate you having us on, fellas.
Yeah, and he's the only one of the 3 of us who actually has been arrested and spent time in jail, Mr. Officer.
Yeah, I got a little uncomfortable when he real uncomfortable.
Yeah, flashbacks.
Statute of limitations ain't run out on some of my stuff.
See how he straightened up. See how his words and stuff. He don't usually talk like that. You ran down your credentials. He was like, "Oh, I can straighten up right now."
Right
That's why.
now.
See, if y'all can't see him.
It was that last credential, SWAT.
Right. Actually, y'all can't see him, but he is sitting at his chair like he is in grade school.
You're right.
Just sitting there, just like speaking the right way too.
I'm like, yes, sir.
So, yeah, we're gonna get. Anybody that's looking on the live, I know there's a lot of lives going on. Mine is not going on just yet. UrbanAtlanta.com is where you want to go at. If you're looking at the live, you see this green wall behind us. But if you go to UrbanAtlanta.com, we need you to subscribe. And I'm telling you, this green wall, man, it's cool. But if you go to the website, you're gonna see some really nice things there. So low down, man.
What do, man?
What's going on, man? Talk to me.
Hey, man, another interesting weekend. You know, a lot of stuff going on. My Steelers can't get a game in. I think somebody posted a thing today with Ben and old boy and Beards, great Beards by the time they finally play this game this week. So, you know,
What
We'll
is
see what's
it
up.
now? Got pushed back to Wednesday?
Tomorrow at 3:40 in the afternoon.
Middle of the work.
You know,
Wow. Well, y'all mess around and lose that game. That is going to be a problem.
it really wouldn't be actually, man. I wouldn't even, you know. Well, I don't want to lose to them in any shape, form, or fashion. But if you're gonna, but I don't want to go undefeated either. I think that's a lot of pressure going in undefeated. So I don't mind we lose one, just not to these guys. But it is what it
Steelers
is.
fan.
Yeah. Oh, he's deep. He's deep, bro. Got travels with him the whole nine, man.
Then I ain't gonna tell you that Adrian's a Bengals fan.
I am not a Bengals fan. Don't do that. Don't put that disrespect on my name. Do not put that disrespect on my name. I am a Denver Broncos fan. I still hate the Steelers.
Yeah, well, you know.
Well, I
What it
know
is.
since we're on it right now, I can say something right now because my Giants are in first place. Yeah.
0-7 first place.
They ain't saying a lot.
Winners of three straight. What? Man, what? That blue G, man. Now, we're playing Seattle this week, so I'm trying to grab a hold of this
Yeah,
first
you
place
might-
feeling
you might
for a
well
little
lose
while,
that one.
you know. But the other teams in the division probably going to lose too, so we'll probably stay in first place. 6 wins going to win the division. I'm saying it now.
6 wins gonna win it.
That's sad.
Saying it now. So yeah, like I said, we're gonna today we're gonna talk about accountability. We was trying to get to this last week, but we last week's show was going so well, we just kept it going about being black and blue at the same time, or being black within blue, whatever you want, however you want to look at it. The show got really good. We had some officers that called in. We had an officer here. I actually had a lot of officers that inboxed me, so we're going to continue that show at another time, but I know if we get started on it again, we won't get to this part. So I had recorded, BET had a documentary on Breonna Taylor. There was an interview with her boyfriend, and I recorded it. It probably aired a month and a half ago, and I looked at it last week. And 2020 also had a special, and I watched that one also. There was a lot. I mean, we've heard a lot of things. We, say her name. We've been chanting the thing, the whole nine. But if you haven't seen that special, please make sure that you go take a look at it. There is a lot of footage in those documentaries that's going to make you go, wow. The whole no-knock warrant thing. They won a lawsuit.
They being who?
They being Breonna Taylor's family.
Okay.
So it killed. How can you say, okay, the no-knock warrants are not a good thing. We're not going to do it anymore, and then also offer money, but nobody is held accountable for anything that happened to Breonna Taylor. That's one of the things
Well, I think we
that puzzle me.
We gotta get a backstory on it. I think first. You know what I mean? The lawsuit part is a whole other dialogue. I think. You know what I mean? Of why they settled for that money and the particular time that it came out was right before they announced there was gonna be no charges filed. I mean, I think that was very strategic.
Good word, great word. I was thinking the same thing.
But what I like to do, JT, is let's get from a former SWAT officer. I like to get a little backdrop on what led up to the no knock warrant. We gotta say no knocking.
Right. Okay.
In quotations.
Okay.
In quotation.
Yeah.
Because I think we need a backstory. You know what I mean? From a law enforcement perspective of, because there was some things that I know are right and wrong in that whole scenario. But I would just love to get somebody who's really deep into that particular atmosphere.
Okay. What I'll do is I'll go over what was put out on the documentary. Basically, there was a no-knock warrant put out because a guy that she dated before supposedly received mail at her house, used her address to receive mail. Supposedly they had him on camera leaving her apartment with a suspicious package. And that's why they serve the no-knock warrant because they felt that there was going to be drugs or something like that within her apartment. And I'm trying to make sure I remember this correctly, but I think that he actually got arrested earlier in the night.
That's a key thing.
He got arrested earlier in the night, and they did the no-knock warrant. Now, the way it happened was supposedly they knocked on the door, and according to the police, they basically said, the police is here. They let everybody know, they let them know it's the police knocking on the door. According to the boyfriend and the neighbors, they didn't hear that identification. They got out of the bed, came out of their bedroom, was standing at the back of the hallway. He had his gun because supposedly he didn't know who was knocking at the door. Door was kicked in. He shot. He says he shot into the ground, shot downward, thinking that it was going to be an intruder. And once they found out somebody had a gun, they would leave. And that's when everyone opened fire. They shot straight on towards them. Some other officers shot in from their patio, from the parking lot and through the patio window. And according to the boyfriend, he grabbed her hand and he ducked. He feels that she stood there because she was in shock. She took 5 shots. After the shooting was done, I think the number was 32 shots. First he called his mother. His mother told him to call 911. He called 911. Then after he got off the line with 911, he called his mother, and then he felt that the police had pulled up from his 911 call. He goes outside. They felt they was going to get a suspect, get a drug dealer. They made him turn around, put his hands above his head, walk backwards. If he didn't walk backwards, they was going to sick the dogs on him. And there was just some things that was said that was within these video clips that was kind of crazy to me. He was saying, what's going on? I called you guys, that type of thing. And I understand, as a police officer, I can understand that you're supposed to, just because somebody say that, you're not supposed to say, oh, okay, that's cool. I can get that. But there's just a lot of things that went on from there. The way he was treated, some things that was said to him almost, and this was on camera, in an apologetic way. This was a how did they say it? This was a mix-up, miscommunication. They didn't say I'm sorry, but the way they said it, and I'm listening to it, so you could tell it was like in an apologetic manner, So from there, I'm gonna let a man from the law enforcement side.
Can I just say a couple quick things, quick facts about the case, though? Yeah. The thing about the case was that the police broke off the hinges to the door. Mr. Walker fired a shot, and it hit an officer in the leg. And then the other officers fired and fired some shots in return. And there was one detective who had fired like multiple shots. And the other thing to point out, a quick fact is that the no-knock warrant was changed at the last minute to a knock and announce. And there's been some controversy behind that as well. Yeah. So I just wanted to point that out before you go.
All right. He pointed out a valid point that I was going to hit with. We got to go with what a no-knock warrant is. A no-knock warrant. There's a justification to use no-knock warrants. No-knock warrants are used for if there's imminent danger to a third party, if there's a violent felon involved and there's a danger to the police, or destruction of evidence, and it has to be imminent, happening right then. No-knock warrant, there's a safety issue for the officers involved. What they typically look at is the subject's criminal history. If you look at the boyfriend that she had prior to the one that was in the house, he did have an extensive history which justified a no-knock warrant. Now, there's more to it than the way they tap danced about it. There was actually a drug investigation involved. Okay, she was a principal party in that investigation. Okay, Now, that's for the courts to decide, but that's what led up to the warrant being issued. Now, going to what the gentleman over there said, I can't recall your name.
Adrian, that's cool, man.
Adrian.
I understand,
And,
officer.
What basically happened at that point, as soon as they got knowledge that the warrant, the principal in that warrant that allowed for a no-knock was already captured earlier, at that point, the warrant on its face value, the no-knock, was null and void. So it wasn't like they sat up there and said, should we hit a no-knock? Should we not hit a no-knock? They couldn't hit a no-knock at that point because the party that they mentioned being violent was already in custody. Now,
They knew that?
they knew that.
Prior to?
They knew it. So that's why they knocked and announced. Now, the other part, well, should have knocked and announced. That's here or there.
That's here. Yeah.
That's a point firm. I'm not trying to back it up. I'm just stating the facts as they, came out. Okay. The warrant also was for search for drug paraphernalia things and constitutes a crime of possession with intent marijuana. Okay, that's what the boyfriend was being investigated for. That's what she was thought, nothing proven, to also be involved in. That's what the warrant was for. So the reason why they continued, a lot of people didn't understand, well, they already got him. Why did they continue in with the warrant? And a lot of people didn't know, but the reason why they continued in with the warrant was because they had a search warrant also, and it was for fruits of the crime being drugs, paraphernalia, whatever, money. And so at that point, they could continue on. They could not do a no-knock. A no-knock is, like I said, it's got to be some serious circumstances. And death, it's got to be something that the officers feel as if knocking and announcing would be a safety issue for the third party involved or them. So they couldn't do it at that point. But if they did, it wouldn't have been a knock, it wouldn't have been anything that would have hit it. Now, this is the little thing we talked about last week, the color of law. Officers are covered. And that's something that a lot of people in Virginia actually took that away from the officers, and it's causing issues now because that's basically saying you're that's wrong way to put it, get out of jail. But basically, your immunity from making a mistake. You're making things in split seconds, and so you're covered if you're acting in good faith, and a jury and somebody, an officer under similar circumstances would testify that he would do the same thing, then you're acting in good faith to be covered under color of law. In other words, if you're doing your job, your feet are right, meaning you got ability, opportunity, and jeopardy to shoot, or it doesn't even have to be shooting, whatever you're doing, and you have a reason to be there, be it a 911 call, place you at the call, or whatever, that's how you're covered. Now, you take that away from officers, which will be a whole different story we'll just talk about today, that's why they do no-knocks. So there was a reason for no-knocks. Now, if it comes out later on, don't get me wrong, if it comes out later on that somebody lied and forged a document, whatever, but that hasn't happened yet. So we'll just deal at facts. A judge looked at the facts that were presented to him involving her and the other individual, issued a warrant, a no-knock. The no-knock, I hope the reason it wasn't served was because he was already captured. If they were seriously thinking about hitting a no-knock when the principal party and it was already captured, they got real issues. But that'll come out in the wash. But as it stood that day, they're at the door. Now, when they hit the warrant, and this is what a lot of people understand, and that gentleman was probably told by his attorney to say he shot into the ground to warn him. No. I would have said I was shooting at the door to hit the individuals that were making the entry into my location. That's what really occurred. Okay, now, I wasn't there, but hey. Now, the officers involved were hitting a valid warrant that was signed by a judge in that jurisdiction. They could hit it. They were doing their job. They're covered under the color of law. The gentleman that was in there is covered because what amendment was that? Constitution was to give you.
Second Amendment.
Yep. And so basically, you can protect yourself against an unlawful seizure. So it's happened all around. It's happened before around the country. If you hit the wrong door and an officer gets killed, or if it's something else involved in it, you're good. Now, in that particular case, the officers, this is what people don't understand. Everybody, it should have been cleared up a lot earlier. It wasn't an arrest warrant. It was a search warrant. There's a big difference. So if, we'll play two scenarios here, just to kind of clear it up for people. If they would have hit the warrant and nothing was valid on it, and it was a wrong door. Say if they were supposed to hit B, but they hit A, and the gentleman inside shot and killed 2 officers, and then they didn't shoot him, he'd walk because he has a right to protect himself from an unlawful seizure. Okay, now there was a valid warrant there, so that doesn't come into play. Now where the nuances will come in and say the ag assault charge, I don't think it'll stick because that gentleman wasn't involved. He wasn't a principal in the warrant. There's nothing tying him to the criminal case. He returned fire legitimately, like he said on film. I thought you heard that he really thought he had called the police because there was a home invasion, or a robbery or burglary. So he would have not been. I wouldn't have liked it, but if he'd have killed an officer at that point, that would have been out in the wash. But the part that we, as a people, we don't understand, if those 5 bullets would have killed him too, those officers are covered under the color of law. And the reason why a lot of people don't really get it is because the Supreme Court decided you can't Monday morning back what happens within seconds with officers. And if you do that, it takes a whole lot of it out because after it's over, you could go and say, okay, that's not the guy. Oh, that was a female. But you're talking about a dimly lit situation. Shots are fired. One of your guys cries out, he's hit. You're returning fire because pucker factor. You know, you're sucking all the air in out the room because it's that right now situation. It's a gun battle. The officers return fire. The young lady, and anytime there's a loss of life, it's tragic. The lady was struck 5 times. She expired on the scene. The other gentleman wasn't hit. Now, the way the law looks at it, not the way we want it to be looked at, but the way, and it doesn't matter what color you are, when those officers did that act, and they had a valid warrant and a right to be there. Now, what's going to come out in the wash, if there was an officer that lied on an affidavit, or when they look at the whole investigation is going to come out, they're going to have to show surveillance tapes. They're going to have to show how they tied her to the drug dealing. It could have been a package they picked off, a delivery. What I'm understanding, it was deliveries that she was accepting, packages from, California problem,
Right.
But so that's what occurs. So when that happens, that doesn't come out initially, but that plays a lot to see what the total situation was. So once you back that out of it and you look at it, the officers came in, boom, they placed him on arrest. I guess they fell out, called him out. That didn't come out initially, but from what you told me, at that point they told him to turn around. So in other words, they took fire, they backed out. Training, and getting into that also. Training, you hold what you got. And then you call SWAT. You never give up ground that you've already gave.
Yeah,
Another thing that they
did
messed
call
up
SWAT.
on,
Yeah.
one of on any entry I did when I was as narcotics commander, gang, SWAT, Red Dog, I always, when you're talking to crowd, because you're bringing people in, people on the perimeter may or may not be with your team. Those are the people that are just there in case somebody approaches the house while you're in, or somebody tries to scoot out the back. They secure the individuals that come out the back. So the first thing I always tell them, you do not fire into the house even if you come under fire. You find a position of cover, not concealment. Cover is something that can stop a bullet. Concealment is something that just, they can't see you, but a bullet could go through and kill you. So you tell them, find a place of concealment, hack it down, we'll deal with the gunfire from inside the house. So that officer that fired from outside the house, there's no way to justify his actions. No way. But that's a training issue. He's still covered under the color of law because you'd have to show that he was malicious in his intent. Like a lot of people, police officers are no different than anybody else. If I pull a gun right here, right now, and start shooting at you, and if you had one, and if you've never been in a gun battle, you've never been in the military.
No, sir, I haven't.
Okay, pucker factor would be there. Pucker factor would be there. You start sucking up the couch, but you'd also pull it and you start probably spraying and praying. Bam, 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 bam. Oh, I hope I got it. And that's what it sounds like may have happened there. Not the initial officers inside, but the officer that was outside. And that's something you can't teach at the academy. You don't know how an officer's going to react to it until he actually comes under fire. Now, the officers that are in that stack, they may have been part of the investigation, or they could have just been from another narcotics team or some other unit that does their warrants, and they're not even privy to any part of the investigation. They just know that they'll pass the warrant around, everybody look at it, the supervisor will look at it, it's a valid judge's signature, look at the no-knock's been signed, check out the date, boom, look it over for any inaccuracies, boom, at that point, they can serve the warrant. They're covered under the color of law. They're acting in good faith. They're acting in good faith. So if a bad incident happens because he's the after the warrant and he's a lying piece of shit, everybody else in the room that took part in it's okay because they were acting in good faith. Now, Mr. Sykes here, if he was affiant on that warrant, he's going to have to deal with his untruthfulness. And there's court cases, and that's happened in Atlanta where, Junior and them, he will go to jail. But if it's all good and everything's right and correct, that's what we have to wrap our heads around. And not that doesn't mean that there won't be any reform. But as the law stands right now, those officers would be justified, and that's why you couldn't charge them.
But with body cams should tell us the whole story.
Well, there was no body cams working.
Exactly. So why were there no body cams?
Now, see, this is what you'd have to go into that because I can't talk because I'm not a member of that department. You'd have to look at what their departmental SOPs are regarding that. Okay, well, for the city of Atlanta, like I said, we're real forward. Since the body cam came, they have to be on every call. You have 3 strikes.
Does that include specialized units as well? So that
yes, with Atlanta, it's one of the few, and I was going to go into that.
Yeah.
He does his research.
That was one of the main issues.
When you've been part of the system, you do your research.
But see, a lot of law enforcement agencies pick and choose who's allowed to do it. Our chief was very forward-thinking and pissed a lot of people off at the time, but Chief Shields pulled back all our people out of task force, Marshall's task force, Fugitive Task Force, which I was a part of, Ammo Task Force, was the FBI task force, I was a part of that also for Fugitive. And basically what happened was they weren't comfortable with APD requirement SOP that we had to wear the body cams at all times, even if you're on task force. And a lot of people had blowback by it. A lot of people had blowback. Well, how can you do that? That's going to change. Well, there's 2 different ways to look at it. And I'm retired now, so the way I look at it changed a little bit. But to be honest with you, the body cam's done more for law enforcement than people think. It's probably the worst thing that ever happened to a criminal because the conviction rates are going way up because the camera don't lie. Now, do I think a camera in that situation? I can't see why anybody, like SWAT, I look at it a little differently because the tactics are different and the reasons they're there, it's gone to hell in a handbasket when they get called. But any regular unit, even if it's a tactical unit, be it Red Dog, narcotics, I think they should be required to wear a body cam because there shouldn't be anything that they do that shouldn't be scrutinized. And if you would have had the body cams there, it'd have been an open and shut case. Yeah. Now you got to look at it like this. It wasn't there, so we don't know. So you have to look at the evidence at hand, which would be right now would be a valid warrant. The court case involving the deceased hasn't came forward yet, so that evidence hasn't came out or lack thereof of evidence. So I don't want to speak ill of the dead, but the facts of that case are going to come out at some point. Now, the officers, going back to what I said, were acting in good faith. And that's why charges weren't brought against those 5 officers. Does that mean later on when the FBI is looking at it now that they may find out that those officers forged something or something was wrong and then they'll be brought up on charges? Yes. But as it stands that day, they were acting on good faith. They had a valid warrant. A person fired from that dwelling at them. It was the location that the warrant was on. It was in the, within the time span where you can serve the warrant. So they did nothing wrong. Now, somebody died, which is that's always going to look bad.
Yeah.
But we don't know the facts of the case.
Now, let me ask you this. It was said that part of the evidence gathering for getting the warrant was the packages being delivered. And supposedly, investigator went to the post office and asked them about packages being delivered to this residence, this dwelling, whatever you want to call it. And they put this on the documentary. They basically said, we told them, no, she hasn't received anything suspicious. Any boxes? I think it was more of a cell phone bill that was supposedly addressed there. So now, like I said, as they go back, the FBI go back and look at this thing, could charges be brought upon something that, I mean, we talk about it, Angelo talks about it all the time. You know, when you're talking about going higher up, these officers were serving a warrant that was put before them. So, you know, the warrant was done way above their pay grade, correct?
No,
Not?
no. The warrant's done by the applicant. That's somebody in their own
You
group. It
talking
could
about
have been one of
the
them.
approval of the warrant? The judge had to sign the warrant.
Yeah, a judge has to sign the warrant. Once the judge only looks at the facts that are presented to him in the affidavit. So, but that's not all the facts of the case. But for whatever reason, that judge signed off on it. And my guessing, because he signed a no-knock, it was more so to get the individual that wasn't there that was captured earlier. But when he signed it, he also signed the search warrant part of it, which gave them a right to continue. Again, if it was just an arrest warrant, they would have had to stop right there because the person's body had already been seized.
But when the judge signed the warrant, and I don't know the answer, when he signed the warrant, was it under the impression that that guy was still living there? Do you know when the paper was submitted for that?
Without having
information,
actually
was that in the documentary?
Speculation.
No, they knew that he wasn't living there.
They knew he wasn't
They
living
knew
there.
he wasn't living there. They
And he was
just
going there
felt
to
that he
pick up
was getting packages
and
there.
Getting packages.
Yeah,
And
that's what they felt.
I'm not going to assume against somebody that's deceased, but certain things come from California. And it was a drug investigation. And that may not bear out. But even if it didn't, unless they were all culpable, we sat around the table and said, look, dude, I don't give a fuck. We're going to go ahead and get in this house. Right? Then they're all culpable. But if Mr. Sykes here wrote the affidavit and he fudged some shit or lied or left stuff out, he can be held criminally accountable. All the rest of us that took part didn't do anything wrong.
You were just acting on.
We were acting on
orders.
what we saw. It's like if I go out there now and say, hey, that guy over there just raped a girl, get him. You guys charge out, if you're all sworn officers, run across the street and the guy resisted and, he has a gun because he's a legal gun carrier, has a permit. You see it, he reaches for his gun, boom, to protect himself, you open fire, kill him. Every single one of you are okay. Me, because I told you he committed a rape and he didn't, could be mistaken identity on my part or for whatever reason, if I yell that out, I'm in trouble. You guys aren't because you're acting in good faith. There's another sworn officer that told you this person that committed a crime. All you were doing was trying to effect an arrest. His actions led to you killing him doing that. Now you find out later on he was justified because he wasn't an individual. Now that goes two ways. If he would have got the gun out and killed one of us, he'd be okay. He'd go home if we didn't return fire and kill him. You understand what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So that's one thing we got to look at. Now, do I think no knocks are necessary? Yes. But I think, again, not tooting Atlanta's horn, but once we had the Neal Street shooting, which was a bad shoot, the warrant on its face value was totally fabricated.
Right.
That's why the other officers walked, because they weren't privy to it. They just hit the warrant thinking, okay, we got a good warrant. This drug's been sold out of this location. They returned fire. The lady shot through the door. They fired, killing her. And that type of situation, those officers were covered under the color of law.
So I got a question, though, that because the whole premise of the episode is about accountability. And I guess why we're having so many issues, and to your credit, that all makes sense, the warrant. The problem that so many people are having, including myself when I read the report, is that the police report contained multiple errors. So one error in the police report is it listed that Brianna didn't have any injuries. She was shot several times. Those are injuries. The police report also said that they didn't force their way into the house. They did. They used a battering ram to do that. So when you have inconsistencies in the actual sworn police report, my question is, to the point of accountability, the problem is if police officers are, and it's very hard to call them liars, but if they are making falsehoods and misstatements on the actual documents post-incident, doesn't that call into question their credibility, even though the warrant is valid and even though everything else beforehand was fine. After the incident and they're doing the investigation, the problem is, wait a minute, the police report is lying though. Like, so how do you address that part?
Okay. That part of it, and that goes back to what I was saying, the case has to be adjudicated. And until the case is adjudicated, we're all just assuming. And you know what assume does is makes an ass out of you and me. So, and I mean, that's what you can't speak on, because in a great, depends on which side, there shouldn't be a side, but depending on which side you fall on, a good outcome could be two different things. Now, what happens with that report a lot of times, I've seen it happen, and I would fault, if this did occur, I would fault the supervisor on scene. A lot of times when things happen, they'll tell somebody, hey, Sykes, knock out that report. How many times you hear that? Ooh. Yeah. Hey, Sykes, knock out that report. And the senior guys, they'll do something and say, hey, Sykes, knock out that report. Now, I cannot even fathom any way, stretch of imagination that the affiant didn't write that warrant. Now, if it turns out it was the affiant and he made mistakes and left things out, the fact that she said she wasn't injured, that was, a lot of times you got to realize it's almost like you're in shock when you have a shooting. Your adrenaline's flowing through your body. You're actually shaking after you shoot somebody. It's not out of being scared. Your body has a dump. It does an adrenaline dump to make sure you can do everything you need to do. And you're like that. Now, I know what I always tell my guys when I was in a shooting, which you always shootings, you want to take yourself out of a situation. The officer doesn't make a statement at that time. Now, I don't know how professional that police department is. If it was me, I said, Sykes, you're not feeling good, are you? You don't feel pinkish. Transport down the grade. That gives him a chance to gather his thoughts, because I know everybody thinks that I can't say everybody. A lot of people think that all officers are out here wanting to kill people. They're not.
Right.
It's a tragic. I've seen officers involved in shootouts that didn't pull their gun resign. There's a lot of officers that'll go on for about 2 months after shooting and they just can't do it anymore. Either they overreact or underreact or don't want any part of it anymore. I've seen officers when a couple of officers were slain in Atlanta, other officers turned in their badge and gun and said, yeah, it ain't worth this. And a lot of people don't identify with it being life-threatening on the officer's part until somebody loses their life or they have a close call, and they say, hey, this little bit of money ain't worth it. And so it's a come to Jesus moment for a lot of people.
Yeah, but I believe, to push back a little bit though, but that's, a warrant is very different than the post-event though. So if you list her injuries as none, but also at the same time to the point that you made, you said she expired on scene. She was bleeding there, and they called an ambulance and they responded later, so on and so forth. So there is a clear indication that she did sustain some type of injuries. Like that's not disputed. Those are facts. That's
not
black and white.
Warrant.
No, right, but that's what I'm saying. Yeah, but I'm saying, but this is the incident report. The incident report
Incident reports are flawed all the time. They can help you, and flawed by that, it goes to the officer's educational level, which a lot of times is high school, GED. That plays into it. And personally, I wouldn't have an officer write a report of that magnitude the day that the incident happened. And I venture to say he's sitting there racing through his mind if it's his first time ever shooting somebody. And at that point, nobody knows who killed him. So you have 6 officers or however many were in that stack, meaning the lineup for go out and make entry, scared shitless or apprehensive, because it's all fine and dandy when the bullets are flying, but when you walk in there and you see a young woman bleeding to death, that's traumatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody, when I was involved, you're trying to save that person. You're putting pressure on their wounds. And that's what occurs. So the picture that everybody has, that high five and, bumping chest, it doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. I've been on too many shooting scenes, involved in shootings. It does not happen. That's the worst thing. It's the last thing he also wants to do in his career. And when it happens, if that, it's going to be real important when that report was written.
That's interesting, because in the documentary, like I said, they called SWAT after the shooting. So they backed away, held theirs, but they backed away. Now, whether they thought somebody else was in there with the weapon, we don't know. But he told an officer after he backed up, put his hands above his head, the dog was barking, They cuffed them. They was walking them to the car. He told an officer, I don't know what's going on. My girlfriend is in there dying. And there was a female officer. She said, I don't give a fuck. Keep walking. Nobody went in there, and it could have been because they thought there was somebody else in there with a gun. But nobody else went in there until SWAT got there. Yeah. Then when SWAT went in there, they showed that clip because SWAT had on cameras. It was crazy. Nobody else had on cameras, but SWAT did. When SWAT came in, they had the cameras. They showed them going in, clearing the house. And they announced, we have a female, la, 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 la. And it was just interesting to me that when he said what he said, I mean, could it be that they thought somebody else would have been is that like protocol?
Yeah, that's what it is. And that's an easy cleanup on that one. And not justifying what the female officer said, but it's just like bullies. And it's just like in the club. You work the club. I work clubs. Everybody's been to a club, and everybody black has been around fights. And you've seen how many times the person that passes the lick and everybody else is, I'm glad he knocked him out. I thought I was going to have to fight. And so when somebody does that, that's the worst call you're going on. Because imagine you're an officer and you're in La La Land, you eating your coffee and donuts or just chilling or doing whatever you're doing, or maybe coming off a call, or maybe thinking about going home to see your loved ones, and a call comes up that an officer's shot. A call comes up that subject is still not in custody. So then a call comes up, SWAT's called. And as a SWAT commander, I'll tell you how I'd handle it. When I scramble my team, dispatch, we calling everybody, I'm on my way, I'm talking to the on-scene supervisor, I'm asking questions, who, what, when, where. I said, hey, scramble, have somebody go across the street, get the next door neighbors, try to determine who's in that house or who's normally in that house. Any males, I'd have dispatch running the calls of service for that location. And that's what the SWAT commander was doing at that point. Okay, he gets a copy of the warrant when he gets there. They're trying to determine what happened. You got to realize this was not a young woman warrant. This was a warrant for a felon that was moving or trafficking or possession with intent amount of narcotics. So when the shot was fired, they had no way knew that the only suspect or the person that shot the officer was a subject they called out and took into custody. I don't know how many times we call somebody out, ask them, is there anybody else in there? Nobody else is in there. We get somebody out the ceiling. Mm-hmm. We get somebody on their couch. They take the cushion part out of the couch and lay on the couch. So that's why they continued. And the sad part about that is, the fact is, if they would have went right in, she probably, well, I can't probably because I don't know her extent of her injuries, she may have lived. But there's old saying, you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. And that's one thing about narcotic sales and the things that people do and allow to happen around them and take part in. Your loved ones are also being put at risk by your situations. Now, the flip side of that is if anything was fabricated, one, there's no dollar amount I guaranteed her family, no matter what they gave her, it doesn't pay for her.
No,
you understand
$12 million is not.
Yeah.
Two of the saddest things that I saw about the documentary with the boyfriend, they asked him, what is justice for you? And he said, justice for me would be Brianna sitting next to me. I was like, wow, that's deep.
Yeah.
Then they also showed the Jordans, the sneakers that they had bought for their future child. You know, it was just looking at him doing this interview. He was locked up. Immediately, he didn't get to go to the funeral. He was put out on house arrest. And then, like I said, the charges ended up being dropped. Yeah. But they said it was dropped, what is it, with prejudice or without prejudice, so they can come back if they need to?
That's a ploy. I won't.
Yeah, that's what they said. They kept asking. He was like, "Listen," he said, "I'm clean." He said, "I've never done anything like, you know." But, the charges were dropped.
Yeah.
I will say that much. But, he did do some time. Of course, he has a lawsuit going against the city of Louisville. Louisville has a little bit of history anyway.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to get to that with you. Listening to you, you've said a couple of times, last week and this week, Atlanta is one of the first, doing this, putting this in. And like you said, no-knock warrants are something that's needed. For Louisville to ban or stop no-knock warrants because of this, do you think it's because of the history?
No,
or was
it's-
it a save face type thing?
No,
And
it goes back to what happened in Atlanta.
and y'all understand, this is just his opinion.
Yeah.
He is not speaking for as far as the Atlanta Police Department. This is his opinion. So just make sure y'all know that. Don't
I
nobody
think
be trying
that
to sue
plays
him.
back into what we talked about last week, those officers that were overcharged in that situation. I think all mayors had a pucker factor going on. They don't want their cities to burn. They don't want damage. They don't want their commerce to stop. When you have riots and things of that nature, you have the small businessman, he still has to pay that note at the end of the month. And if he gets, and most people just have the bare minimum to have a restaurant insurance because they can't afford anything else. So trying to keep the overhead down. So the mayors, when they're making that decision, it's different as a police officer and as a unit commander. I look at it because I'm telling my guys to go out there and do the job they're getting paid to do it to the best of their ability. The mayor's looking at, well, let me sacrifice this one officer. He'll get his job back when it all goes through. But right now, that'll put stop the bleeding, stop the riot that may happen, whatever. I think there was a lot of that going on, and that's another reason why they went ahead and paid out, because just because you can doesn't mean you do, and a lot of times you can be 100% right and still be 100% wrong. And I'm not saying I'm not judging what those officers did, but a loss of life did occur. It was tragic. And I think the mayor and the city of Louisville wanted to appear as if, hey, look, we're feeling for you. This is what we're going to do. Like right off the bat, when the two, one college student, was a college student, where the incident happened where they were arrested and tased. All right. When that situation occurred, there was a total overreaction by the DA's office and the mayor's office. Those officers were overcharged, which is more true. They can't point a taser at somebody is not aggravated assault. Now, if that was true, let's go back to the Wednesday shooting.
Correct.
You can't have it both ways.
Can't have it both ways.
Okay,
I
you
made that
understand what I'm
same
saying?
argument. Yeah.
All right. Go back to the Wednesday shooting. So, I mean, and that's not justifying.
Bro, I'm about to fight you. I'm not kidding, sir. I'm just kidding. There really is, but the problem that I want to push back on is that we continue, and in the interest of full transparency, I wanted to be a police officer. I grew up wanting to be a police officer, and then I wanted to go into the Air Force to be a military police officer. Wasn't in the cards for my health. So I do respect the boys and women in blue. My issue is that there still continues to be so many inconsistencies on the part of the law enforcement department, though. So, for example, to secure the no-knock warrant, which we spoke a lot about, I believe, if I remember correctly, back in May, and I went to my iPad to double check and it's true, like back in May 15th, the Louisville postal inspector came out and said that his office was not a part of any investigation to secure the no-knock warrant. But that was used to secure the no-knock warrant. So, like, there are a lot of inconsistencies where, hey, yeah, after the incident, there might have been an issue, might have been some initial shock, PTSD trauma, I get that. But there's just seems to be so many inconsistencies that's making it very hard for the public to understand that.
That's the accountability part that I'm talking about.
100%.
Somebody said that they got this, news from this information from the Postal Service.
Right.
But the Postal Service said no, they didn't
said
get
that?
it.
Who said that?
Some officer said that.
The officers used information.
Some officer. Which officer? Was it?
I don't know the specific officer, but
they
but
didn't put, but that was the way
It
they
was a
got
part of the warrant.
that
it was part of the warrant, correct.
So this is what I'm saying. Until the case is adjudicated, we can't go. But I will speak on what you just said. And this is, again, my opinion. That's why when we spoke on it last week, we need a national police academy. Because what happens is, and a lot of things that you see, you don't see APD involved in a lot of this foolishness. And when you do, those individuals are normally shackled and go into jail. We've had it. Check it, Google.
Yep.
Atlanta officers have gone to jail after bad shootings. You know, we had one murder guy, kid who was just doing larcenies, came down, he shot, lied, saying the guy tried to hit him, veer off, dumbass didn't look up and see the camera. Boom, he's in jail now. And what people don't look at, and they should look at, is the fact, what is the training of the individual's officer? When you go to court and people take the time to wait and look at the evidence, a person's training record and how many hours they've gone, all that's going to come into account. They're going to pull a cross-section of all his reports. So they're going to see did his reports read like Once Upon a Time, just filling the black guy? Or was it a, systematic, he came over with boom and deal with it. And the only way to fix that's going to help African Americans is if we push for national police academies where everybody's taught the same thing. That's like that chokehold that was used in Minnesota. People aren't talking about it. I mean, Wisconsin. That was a legal hold what he did in that police department. That's been outlawed for eons everywhere else. It's like Detroit years ago when the guy hit the guy in the head with a Kell light. Well, Kell lights weren't even authorized. But if a supervisor allows people to carry Kell lights and everybody knows it, de facto law, boom, all of a sudden
you're talking about accountability, and there was another side of the story that shortly after it came out, I know the Breakfast Club did an interview with her mother, and she talked about how she was sitting there for hours. Was sitting there for hours, and the detective that was there would not let her in, knowing that her daughter was still in the house. They wouldn't give her any information. She kept asking, knowing that, and everyone knew that she was deceased by this time. And they still did not give any information to the mother, would not let her go in, anything like that. And they kept giving her the runaround.
Now this was after she went to the hospital, stayed at the hospital. She was at the hospital for, I think they said, 2 to 2.5 hours.
Thinking her daughter was going to arrive.
And somebody came out and said, no, ma'am, we don't have her here, nor do we have any report of her being transported here. So then she went back. She had already been at the apartment, at the crime scene. Then she went back to the crime scene, and there was an officer, a black officer, that actually was not on duty. He lives in the same apartment complex.
Oh, wow.
He heard it on the scanner, so he went over there, and of course they, posted him up, to keep people out and that type of thing. She went to him, and he said, you're going to need to speak to the incident commander? Am I saying that right?
Incident commander,
yeah. And that's when she had the long wait, and then they finally came out and told her she's inside. So of course, after 6, 5, whatever, how many hours, she pretty much knew then. She probably knew already, but of course you don't want to believe that. Then she probably knew then. Now, I don't know if that's part of the police department, or if that's just human decency. I don't know which
that's
one.
Police department. That's police department. Like again, it goes back to what I'm saying. A lot of things that I was blessed to work for the Atlanta Police Department, and I can speak for most of the major departments in the Metro Atlanta area: Cobb, Gwinnett, DeKalb. You're gonna get Smyrna. You're gonna get professional responses, and we have people that are assigned just to do that. Because what they don't realize that, and I'm not knocking Louisville, so brothers in blue out there, I'm not knocking Louisville, but with Atlanta, you would have had somebody from homicide would have went and spoke to the mom just to get information that would have helped an investigation, like when did you see her last? Boom, boom, boom. Do you know who this is? Do you know who that? There's so much information that's lost when you play that old school, stand over there, get back. We don't do that in Atlanta. In fact, one of the things you do is have the officers canvass the area. Once everything's going on, as a SWAT commander, I tell them, clear out the building, but when they clear out both sides and the rear, so in case bullets start flying, you're taking the neighbors, moving them out. You're asking the neighbors questions during that time. There's so much information that's guarded by doing it right. And then that's just, like you said, that's just human decency.
Yeah, so there's one of two reasons why that happened. Either, like you said, it was a training thing within the Louisville Police Department, or they knew that something had been done wrong,
Right.
and they were just trying to figure it out.
No, I don't. That I totally disagree with, because if it was perfect or if it was dead ass wrong, it had nothing to do with being decent. That's just a flaw in how they work the crime scenes. Because if, and I'm not saying this, just play devil's advocate. If it was just totally wrong, what would not letting the mother know her daughter's dead, deceased in a professional manner have changed anything? If it was a 100% good shooting, what would it have changed is going to the mother and saying, look, man, your daughter is deceased. She was killed during a fire. We're still doing an investigation, but as soon as I hear something else, I'll get back to you. And how that rolled off my tongue, because I've had to do it several times. Now, as a SWAT commander, there's other people to do it, but when I worked different positions, I had to do that and inform people that their loved one, the mom comes to the scene, and you know who's under the blanket. She doesn't know. She's distraught. Why are you going to let the lady just walk off? So stand over there. I'll tell you in a minute. No, you walk her off and try to be as kind as you can and break. Because at the end of the day, I don't care if your child's an axe murderer, the Virgin Mary. That's your child. So if that happened the way you said it happened, that was wrong.
And that was her account.
Oh,
That was
okay,
that was strictly her account.
And looking at the documentary, that's the same. And this was somebody that was reporting it. They, I saw her account on 2020. Actually, I'm sorry. Yeah, that account was on 2020. The one on BET was more from the boyfriend's point of view. It was more from him not being able to go to the funeral, being arrested immediately. I mean, he said he was still. Now, one thing he did do that struck me as kind of odd, and I don't know if it was a defense mechanism because it was the police or what, but when he came out, when they pulled him out, he told that. Now he said this is on camera. He said that she shot. He said that. Now, once they got him in the room, he said, "Yeah, I said that was wrong. I was the one that shot."
That happens all the time. Is panic.
Yeah. He did say that. I did see him say that. But what struck me as odd was the guy saying, and again, this wasn't what he said. This is what they had. It could be not having the cameras, the cams on, the body cams. But the thing is, the body cams almost seemed like they was turned on later. That's what. How do you have this footage if you don't have the footage?
But those were the guys who were going in after the fact. I don't.
SWAT.
You said that was SWAT.
No,
had on
this wasn't SWAT. This was the police officers once they pulled him out. SWAT hadn't gotten it yet.
Okay, that could have been beat officers, regular beat
Yeah, the officers who
The
served
regular
the
Metro
warrant.
police.
You'd have to
Yeah.
see what their
Okay.
policy, because I don't know why some departments are excluding some units from having to carry it. Atlanta, everybody has to carry it. And I will say, Chief Shield was 100% adamant about that from the start. Mayor Bottoms adamant from the start. We will wear our body cams, and it's like one strike, third strike suspension. Second strike suspension. Third strike, you may be looking for a job. You better have a very good reason, and you'll be fired. There's officers that one of my guys was caught. There's a situation, stolen car, guy bails. Officers come from all over to try to help find him. He's just in the area. So I'll just ride by. He drives by. He's seen on another officer's body cam. They get the vehicle number off of it. They look for his body cam. It's not there. They have us pull the blue sheet, and he got a package on that. That's how serious Atlanta takes it.
Let me
Now,
go ahead.
That's how I think how everybody honestly should take it. But the only way that's going to work is if the federal government steps in, and pays for it, because it's so expensive. Most small departments discontinue. There's a lot of departments that started with body cams but can't pay for the storage, because it's like anything else involved in law enforcement.
You can
there's
pay for
federal
you can pay
guidelines.
for what you want to pay for. I mean that's a top. I think that's a top down approach.
No,
if
it is on a city like Atlanta that's got the airport. We got deep pockets. When you're talking about a department, a city that can't even give their kids computers to go to school,
During the pandemic.
and now you're talking about paying, I think it's $3,000 or whatever the body cam costs. Now the storage is untold amount of money. It has to be kept for years. You have to get a file system. you're buying in, and there's only one shop stop right now. So whatever they put the price at is what you got to pay. So I mean, that's something else you should look at. And where maybe the keeper, you have a federal agency for everything else. Make a federal agency that covers body cams, all departments in the country, and everybody's issued a body cam, and make it mandatory. Now, ACLU is probably going to be the main person fighting it because they have issues with body cams. So, because like I said, it's just changing the conviction rate.
But I also believe that in terms of accountability, I also believe that the police unions have a huge role in accountability as well. Yeah. I believe that a lot of police, when there are bad incidents, justified bad incidents where the officer clearly did something wrong and he is held accountable, police unions still defend their people. And I believe that when you look at a large swath of the public, a lot of the public have a disdain for law enforcement for the most part because they feel once an officer gets away with it, and I'm putting get away with it in air quotes, or they are not explained. So for in this case, Breonna Taylor's case, the jury was not explained homicide charges. The district attorney chose not to, and the jury formally had questions about it, and the DA said, we're not going that route because to the points that you've been making today, they felt that some of those certain charges wouldn't be able to stick because of the color of the law or the color of that. So, and I get that because studying enough law about that aspect of it. But the problem that you also see is, like, especially with incidents that happen out of New York and incidents that happen out of Minnesota and incidents that happen out of California, police unions then come out in full force and say, no, we will defend our officers. We will defend our officers. This is a war on law enforcement. This is a war on Blue Lives Matter. Like, we're out here trying to do it. And they push back a lot on police reforms. And even though we know that it's a very small percentage of bad apples in police departments, for
there's
example,
a reason for that, though.
What's the reason for it?
No, there's a reason for it.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. You were arrested before, right? No. It's a question. I'm just not being funny. But
Under the Constitution, I have the Fifth Amendment right to not answer that question.
No, but you're joking.
I was.
So when you went to court, went to court, did you have a lawyer?
Did I have a lawyer? No, I actually defended myself.
Okay, I won't even. Okay.
Okay,
I don't even talk to you. The average person would do.
The average person
get a lawyer. Correct?
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay. Now, people are not going to like this, but the reality of it is, at that point, that officer is no longer acting as an officer; he's acting as an accused. So, the union, you're paying your monthly dues to the union. The union's job is to protect that officer. Yeah. So that's what you're seeing. So what they're doing is just like any other case, just like that attorney,
you're saying,
like when you see the victims' families,
any criminal that has an attorney,
after the date, that lawyer has told them exactly what to say into that camera.
Right.
Best believe. You understand what I'm saying? So that's the part that the blowback that people understand. Yeah, you're seeing the union stand up and say, yeah, let's check this. But that's the union's job.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because think about a world that you're seeing now in Atlanta, when officers were accused of something that they didn't do, overcharged by the very people that's supposed to protect them. The very people that's supposed to protect them threw them out. They say, hey, you're on your own. And they were suspended, got no due process. Now, look at it as an officer going out and have to patrol that next day. That's why violent crime is up. Nobody wants to admit it, but Black Lives Matter said hands up. Departments all over the nation, because of the way mayors are reacting all around the nation and taking qualified immunity away, saying hands off. All they're doing is answering 911 calls. 911 calls do not reduce crime one iota, because that's somebody that called for the police, be it a wellness check, homicide, burglary, whatever. You were called to the scene. Proactive policing is what actually reduces crime. Now, if you have reforms and you had one academy teaching the same techniques, it wouldn't be as much profiling involved in it. It'd be just good common sense and law enforcement in working within the law to effect arrests. And that's all that needs to change. There's nothing wrong with the law.
Well, let me ask you this. There's always this conversation about, cops don't tell on other cops. And even though you know it's wrong, how does that play out? I mean, truly, how does that play out? Because, and I know there's TV shows out there and everything. I know I just watched the episode of Chicago PD, and that's what it talked about. It talked about a cop who actually told on his partner, who his partner was killed in the line of duty because he was the aggressor. And he was catching so much flack from the department to the point where he got jumped at night.
Right at the block in front of his crib.
Right in front of his crib. right
As
in
you
front
can
of his
see,
crib.
we've all seen that episode.
Right. So, and like I said, I just happened to watch it the other night. And so it's like, how does the culture inside the department, when there is a cop that wants to stand up against his fellow men and women in blue, to speak to what's right?
Now, and I'll say this, in prior shows, we have had police officers up here that basically have said, somebody's doing wrong in front of me, they in trouble. But to your point, I get what you're saying is,
Yeah, they said that on camera though, in front of a microphone though.
But the thing is, okay, so they may have a reputation already of telling people, hey man, don't do that, because if you do that, hey, I ain't dealing with that. I got a family to feed.
And also do that.
I'm not about to be a part of that. But let's say you have that, we can say rookie, or that officer that's only been on the force 2 years and hasn't had a chance to put that stigma out about himself, and another officer does something wrong in front of him. Is he, kind of shamed into not? Is that a pressure of them not reporting the wrongdoing that they may see? Do you think that happens a little bit?
I'll answer that honestly. You want the answer from 1989? 2020.
You can give both perspectives. I think it's interesting.
89, I had a little cops looking the other way on me, so I don't
when
talk
I first
about it.
came on the force, when I first came on the force, I was coming in that era where in Georgia, there was officers that were still on the force that when somebody was in your house doing a burglary, you had the right to shoot them. When police officers arrived on the scene, they would shoot burglars. That's why a lot of homicides that occurred back then were shootouts between police and burglars. So that was a mindset of some of the officers that I was policing with. It was totally different. But there was also more honor among thieves, and police carried themselves in a certain way where you were, Blue Knight was one of my favorite shows growing up. Adam 12 and things like that, Hill Street Blues. So you had
As you can see, he doesn't have any gray because he shaved it all off.
Black don't crack.
Hill Street Blues.
Street
Boy,
I heard that show.
that was a basketball play on that show.
But going back to that,
Right.
What you get was back then it was more like an honor system, and us, people were more cut and dry, no gray area. Now, I police doing the greatest change ever was Rodney King. And I used to call it affectionately the Rodney King two-step. And I'll tell you, that wasn't an ass whooping. That wasn't an ass whooping.
You said it wasn't?
It wasn't. I'm saying that jokingly. That wasn't an ass whooping. Okay. There was some ass whooping that night. That wasn't an ass whooping. And what's so bad about that, that's just showing you how policing changed and grew. Mm-hmm. From Rodney King taking that beating, and it changed a lot in law enforcement. Just like the occurrences of the last couple months and last couple years is going to forever change law enforcement. But what we have to be careful about is don't throw out the baby with the wash. And that's what I talked about last week. The very people that we need to protect, nobody in this room, but the African Americans that can't or don't go home to a gated community, don't go home to a high rise. They're out there with the unclean, being black people in a bad situation, and there's nobody to protect them against the unclean. And the unclean are committing, they don't go to Buckhead or to a gated community where Sykes lives or out in the country where I live.
Boy, Hey, man, when you got some gates up, bro.
He holding out.
No, I'm just messing with him, though. But
I know.
But
he living good, but I ain't drove through the gates yet. You moved, bro?
Now you don't get.
They didn't close the golf course.
The man, he wouldn't let me in. They said, "Do you really know him?" No, but that's what's changed. and it's gonna change a lot. But what we can't do as a people is allow them to bamboozle us. We need change that's really gonna matter. Not taking out the no knocks. Oh, there can't be no knock clause aren't necessary. People are getting killed. No, that doesn't kill people. What kills people is poorly trained officers and officers that are allowed to be gypsies, go from one department to another department to another department. There's no accountability on use of force complaints where they follow the person around. If we had a national database where every single sustained use of force is captured in that database, and you also have a catch that shows that the person may have been accused of maltreatment 29 times. Well, at some point you got to say if there's a lot of smoke, there must be a fire somewhere.
Right.
But there's nothing that monitors that, and I think that would be something if you had an outside agency monitor that. That's what would bring about change for the African American or just poor communities. I mean, we're making this a black and white issue. It's not.
That's right.
It's a have and have-nots issue.
Right.
That's what it is really. Because people get their ass whooped in Putnam County or some trailer park in South Georgia the same way they do in some major cities. You know, and I think when you put the proper money into training of law enforcement, Atlanta has its own academy. Every chief we've had, I think it started since I've been here. We've always we're allowed to go to training and seek out the training that you wanted to develop your career. Our academy always had classes that came along for us and that were offered to us just to do professional development. Like say when Rodney King came about, we're on the front end of going over use of forces pretty much that next year's in service, the whole thing. And then cuffing techniques, if something happens where a lot of people are getting broken wrists, and we'd have a cuffing class. Use of force, entry training. We went over arrest warrants, affidavits when Neal Street happened. A lot of things happen like that, and we changed SOP.
And you're right. And he's right. You know, the city of Atlanta does their in-service training is usually geared towards things that have occurred. And then they go back and research it, but that doesn't happen.
It's reactionary.
But the problem, and that's the police academy. The problem is it doesn't happen in every police department.
Right.
Most of the police departments don't have the money. That's why we're saying body cams.
That's a big
body
issue.
cams are expensive. You got some departments people still carrying 38s, or some departments that allow people to carry whatever they can afford.
But that still goes back to, again, the accountability within that blue line, right? You got a rookie who sees misconduct and they speak on it, and now they're sidewalled because they saw that something was wrong and they spoke up about it, even if it was somebody that was on the force for 20 years.
I can't say that doesn't happen. In Atlanta, it doesn't happen as much. And one thing, I'll be honest with you, the body cam is like truth serum. It just like it locks up the perp when he does wrong because you're captured on camera. When you say that photo owners, that's not my dope, and I picked up a bag, you got x-ray vision. The jury sees that now.
Man, who put that there?
But what it also picks up is all the officers' conversations also.
But I agree with I don't think it happens nearly as much as some people thinks. It just doesn't, and I was on APD for 9 years, and I'm telling you, it just wasn't something it just didn't happen like that. You know what I mean?
That could just be the culture of...
It's the culture, and it's TV.
Starts at the top.
You know what I mean?
I can tell you it's culture because I live in Baltimore now, and if you know anything about the Baltimore Police Department, we've gone through 5 police commissioners in the 4 or 5 police commissioners just in the 4 years that I've been there. And we just got done wrapping up a bad case where we had a gun trace task force that convicted 9 police officers and sent them to prison for decades because they were literally running their own drug operation out of the Baltimore Police Department. Yeah. So, I do believe culture and departments.
Culture of the department
has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
And then, like I said, Atlanta, we're a chocolate city. We've always had great mayors for the most part, minus one. But
I agree.
Mayor Bottoms is real
we had
forward
that conversation last
real
week.
Forward thinking, and she put Chief Shields in. Chief Shields was under Chief Turner, and like I said, I doubt if there's a department in the country that's more technically advanced than Atlanta. people flying from all over the country to see our video integration system. We're on the cutting edge of everything. We got body cams, and from day one, and this is what a lot also, and as a supervisor, I was upset with Chief Shields. I know why she did it. I was just upset the way she did it. From the time we got it, she was dinging people. Before the SOP was dry, she was, cut your body cam off, And like I said, and as a supervisor, they told me, they actually pulled me off the line during the riots because I didn't have my body cam on. It got snatched off. And so, and I hadn't had time to replace it. That's how serious it was. Video integration, they had somebody watching, doesn't have his body cam on. And I'm a lieutenant, and they pulled me off the line, and I had to get it. So, I mean, it happens. It really, you have to look at the mayor and with the mindset as a city that you live in, because they get a forward-thinking chief. If you look at the number of chiefs that came from Atlanta Police Command staff, I think we probably got 10 or 11. That's current chiefs that came from the city of Atlanta. And so, like I said, we're different. But I say that to say, I'm not saying make a city of Atlanta model. It would be a good shot. But if you take a concept where you take the best police practices and you put it into the whole nation, then you're not going to get a guy that got a gun after a 6-week academy, not 6 months like Atlanta. And so there's a whole lot to learn.
Different. Let me ask you this question. Go back to Breonna Taylor for a second. So they had a supposedly no-knock warrant, but because the guy was arrested, that was no longer the case. So now they had to knock, right? That's the understanding.
Knock and identify.
So how is it, and just you can't answer for them directly, but I guess the question is from a person who served a lot of warrants before, how is it possible that 3 guys could come into a house, knock a door down, and everybody in the neighborhood, there's an apartment complex. So how is it that they weren't loud enough, or what could have went wrong that everybody in that neighborhood didn't say, yeah, we heard them say, because initially no one said it.
In the hallway.
Yeah. No one said it, and then it went to all of a sudden one person said it just long enough, for them to say there was
somebody said it.
Yeah. I mean, how's that, just from a strategical standpoint, is that possible?
Oh, anything's possible. Now you got to look at the probability.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I mean, you've been in apartment buildings, and we're talking about an apartment building where you walk there. There's a door here. There's a door there. Door back there. Door back there. Go upstairs. Got some more doors. Everything echoes. So it's just hard to believe that they
I'm
would.
not sitting here trying to defend the officers.
Don't want you to. Just want to try to shed some light
but I will
on the
shed light
possibility
on
of.
The possibilities there too, but that's a double-edged sword, because I've actually seen officers written up OPS packages, which is an internal affairs investigation, because they're lack of candor or pretending they didn't see something. So that happens with Atlanta. So I'm looking at it differently. Plus, you have body cams. They didn't have their body cams on that day. But you also got to look at it for this. For every time I've seen that, I've asked a lady right on the scene, did you see anything? No, I just came down here. Then when I walked up in the homicide later on that night, she was sitting there giving a statement. So, I mean, we got to now let's be real about this. Yeah. It's just like when you start talking about because remember, when I take this uniform out, I'm African-American. I'm African-American. So when we're all sitting around and you're in the barbershop, used to get my hair cut, now I'm getting shaved, getting my hair shaved, whatever, and you hear the conversations that go on, one person can come in with a legit gripe about police. Man, they put me on the wall, man, messed up my shirt, that's fucked up. Where were you? I was in the Bluff. Okay, well, that kind of goes with it.
Probably gonna happen.
But the other side of it is, there's always that guy, well, I remember this. And then another guy comes in and he one-ups his story. And so it's almost like a folk story at that point. It's like the police departments become this urban creature that's just there out there to kill you. The point is, in Atlanta, you don't get that. If like I said, until recently, the violence of the last couple of years, I didn't carry a gun off duty. Because, like my dad and my granddaddy told me, if you someplace you're supposed to be, you you shouldn't have to carry a gun. And
That
so
was
that's part of it.
that was a while ago.
But but see, now violence is training. We talked about that last
Right,
show.
yeah.
So, I mean, that's just being real about it. I think a lot of what plagues our community could be stopped by just changing the system of policing. But when you attack the very people that do it, because the vast majority of officers, black or white, yellow, green, whatever color they are serving for the right reasons.
Okay, you said something great there. Let me ask you this: How do you not attack the police without attacking a police officer?
Well, I'm not talking about the people marching.
Interesting question.
That is.
I'm talking about the people that should make better decisions for us, that are in leadership positions by us. That would be your Al Sharptons.
Wait.
Nah, we
But
don't need
I'm trying to figure out if you have a police force of, I'm just throwing a number, 200. But there's 2 of them, straight assholes, been doing the most. How do you attack those 2 without attacking the whole 200?
Well, how it should be done, and this is one thing I think there should be greater accountability dealing with OPS packages and use of force packages. If you had somebody on the outside monitoring it, because I know the city of Atlanta's tried to track them before, and we've had all kind of programs. We had bad boy class, and anybody that had a certain number of complaints had to go to that class. That was years ago, and certain people had to attend it. I know some, and but what ends up happening is you keep that accountability, and then you go deal with the officers. Okay, what's this officer's issue? Why every time that he goes on a call, he's having to use his gas, or he's having to deploy his taser? And there's when I supervised as a lieutenant, supervised uniform, I tasked my sergeants with that. And anytime we had a use of force and we went over it, we'd go over it with the officer after we made the decision and say, hey, look, you did this, you could have done this differently. A lot of it's just a teaching. The officer didn't do anything wrong. And
And that's from the inside.
Yeah.
From the outside as us, and now even you, because you retired. So as us, how do we attack those 2? Now from the inside, I get it. I get what you're saying. You know, the reports start coming. Hey, why in the world is this guy always having to do his gas? Why is this guy always got a shooting? What? I get that from the inside, but from the outside, how do you attack those 2 without attacking the whole 200? Because and I know police officers, and I know their character, so I know all police officers are not bad. But from what we're seeing, there are some bad ones out there. So how is it that we from the outside can attack those 2 that's bad, or those whatever that's bad, without looking as if we're attacking the whole police
you have to attack
department?
the policies. If the policies are wrong, you know what I mean, in order not to attack the officers, you have to look at what policy is being violated repeatedly. That, you know what I mean, if you can compare, say, you know, this particular thing keeps occurring and this officer keeps doing it, well, what's the policy for that? How does he get away with it?
And I just want to say to JT, like, they might not be bad, but they possibly could fit the description.
And that's funny.
I told you, dude. Did I tell you these guys, man? These guys, man.
But you got to realize
gotta do one of these
most
shows,
police
man.
officers
It's
want
so
those
much fun.
officers gone.
What'd you say?
Most police officers want those bad apples gone.
Right, yeah.
Because you got to realize
Right.
that makes your job harder.
So,
that makes
so,
it,
so
It's interesting because similar to what you said last week, you said if there was only 10 people in the neighborhood gone, it would change the whole neighborhood.
Exactly.
What's your percentage of police department? If they were gone.
How many?
less would be more. I think what happens now, like Atlanta had a target number that the mayor said, I'm going to have 2,000 police officers.
I said that too.
And they gave people badges and guns that don't need to be a police officer.
I said that
And what's
the
happening
thing is,
in law enforcement, a lot of the officers aren't getting in here for the right reasons. Because you got to realize, a lot of officers make $50 an hour on a side job. You see an officer standing there in front of a club or directing traffic, he's getting paid. And so when you couple that with it, a lot of people don't want to be police officers. They want the benefits of being a police officer.
I said it that there's with the economy the way it has been and kind of still is, there's a lot of, especially you have a lot of military
That come back. Yep.
and because what they'll do is they'll try and find a job within their parameter that they did in the military first. That's what they're gonna try and do. That doesn't work. They're looking for that structure, the same structure that they had in the military. And I ain't gonna say usually, but a lot of those guys are really not set to be police officers. They were great soldiers, but they're probably not good police officers. So getting to your point, what happens is you end up with a lot of people that's in the police in law enforcement for the wrong reasons. They're just in law enforcement to make a living. And
There you go.
when you're in law enforcement to make a living, which I feel if you're not in law enforcement, as they say, to protect and serve, you're in it for the wrong reason. Because if you're just in it to make a living, sometimes your finger might be a little quick. You know, your draw might be a little faster. You know, that type of thing. But and I get what you were saying, Angelo, about attack the policies. But there's a lot of people out there that just they have gotten attacked. Okay, let's say neighborhood policing. And it just may be an officer that's, what was the movie? Colors back in the day. Wow. Pac-Man.
You telling your age, no?
Wow. Right. You remember when Pac-Man was...
I don't remember Colors.
I'm hearing the soundtrack right now.
You remember when Pac-Man was running... I mean, when you can run around a neighborhood and you get a name, you know, Pac-Man, you know, it's either one or two things. Either you're doing something right or you're doing something wrong. So, say in the case somebody is in a certain neighborhood doing a bunch of things wrong, how do those people, I mean, I understand attacking the policies, but, and the crazy thing is we know that nothing is short term, but how do somebody from the outside attack that officer without alienating the whole police force, or a neighborhood attack that officer without alienating the whole police force? Because sometimes a lot of people feel if I, you know, start making reports, they're gonna come harder.
That person definitely isn't living in Atlanta. Because Atlanta accepts.
Okay, let's take Atlanta out of it. It's happening.
Okay, well, no, this is the best way to happen. And I'll tell anybody, this is the best thing you can do. I don't care if it's a traffic stop or whatever. Tell the officer, sheriff's deputy, that you want to speak to his supervisor. If you truly think you've been wrong, because at that point, you're bringing in the very person that's supposed to police the police and make sure he's adhering to SOP, and you'll get a judgment. Because I don't know how many times somebody gets irate, loud and wrong, and then when they call a supervisor out, I used to love going to those calls because I enjoy explaining. And I explain the law to them. I think the biggest thing that hurts us as African Americans, and it doesn't happen in Atlanta, but I know other cities, and I can see when I watch videotape and I see how a situation deteriorates, it goes much to what you said about the deceased mother that wasn't notified that she died. A lot of times, if the transparency that occurs with Atlanta occurred in other departments, and you spoke to people intelligently and let them see what the facts of the case were, they wouldn't riot. I don't know how many times when somebody shows up, why you got my son in custody? Hold on, cowboy. Let's talk. And I always pull them to the side. The reason I do that is because it gives them a chance not to write a check they ask out of cash, but it also gives me a chance to talk to them, and I always lower my voice. Because when I lower my voice, it makes them listen. Yeah. And then we start a dialogue, and I said, well, you want to talk? Let me explain to you what happened. Okay. And I explained to him. I said, this is what occurred. This is what I was told. Why my son would? No, if your son didn't do that, there's a court for that. Now,
so my question for you is, well, two things. First,
hold on a second. Hey, y'all, this is Michael Andre. It's the 8-hour situationship. He's back. He's back, y'all.
That's funny.
I'm telling
hour
Kaya.
and 45 minutes this time. He's back.
I'm telling Kaya. I think the question that you asked, JT, first of all, I'm not sure that was the right question in the sense that how do we, bring out like two people, individuals, and say, talk about these? Because I think that it feels like the entire system is corrupt in many cities, in many jurisdictions. And so I don't think that it's an individual or a couple of bad apples. It's more of a systematic or systemic issue for me with police. And so it's not about calling out two people, it's about calling out the system, one. But the other thing, I think that there are officers who have de-escalation techniques. And so you just gave a really great example of how you approach family members of a suspect or something like that. My question is, why do more officers not employ the de-escalation techniques? And my assumption is that the communities that you policed, you weren't afraid of those particular individuals in that community, may have even lived in those communities or were very familiar with the community at least.
Yeah, he used to go to barbecues.
Whereas, particularly when we kind of talk about white officers policing Black, Hispanic, or poor communities, where we normally see some, the fear. Like even back to just a few months ago, with the gentleman who fell asleep in the Wendy's parking lot or in the drive-through, and of course that escalated.
Yeah, they're not going to hear to answer that.
They're not going to hear the answer.
We've done that.
Yeah.
But why do more people not use de-escalation techniques? Police officers use more de-escalation techniques to try to engage suspects or their family. I mean, because of course, anytime people see the police, of course you get nervous. All types of things happen, and it's interesting because I think the thing that frustrates me the most is that you guys get X amount of weeks of training, 12, 16, whatever weeks of training, and my guess is there's probably ongoing training even after that. But yet, I'm the one that's supposed to be calm when somebody has a gun in my face. How the fuck am I supposed to be calm when somebody has a gun in my face?
Okay. That's a good question. And the best way to answer that is, once again, I'll say, Atlanta, we don't have that issue because our police academy, people come to our academy to learn, how to do it right. But I'll say it in national as a whole, and I said that earlier, I said it last week, and I'll say it again. If we have a national police academy, because you assumed, and you assumed wrong, that people get that training. Some departments in sheriff's office, when you're in a podunk town, I shouldn't say podunk, a smaller town, and it's 70% of your population is under the poverty level, be they Black or white, and now you're hiring sheriff's deputies from the community or surrounding communities, and they have a high school diploma or GED, and they're going to the basic mandate, and your county barely can get the money together for them to shoot to qualify, let alone Atlanta gets 50 rounds a month that you can sign out and shoot. And so that's how things change. So there could be a new technique like, okay, look, the choke technique that was used. Every officer cringed in the state of Georgia when they saw that guy put that foot on their neck. We were like, oh, what the fuck is he doing? Literally, that's what I said when I saw it. I said, what the fuck is that motherfucker? Why the hell? And then he didn't help it when he stood up there gloating like he meant to do it.
Right.
And so that puts the malice on his action. You talked about that last week. But what happens is that's legal. How could possibly in 2020 that whole be legal? When it's just from the simple fact, it works. Just like the old twist the head and pull them out the car. When I first came on, they taught that. It works. But when it doesn't work bad. And why would you let somebody put your foot on somebody's neck and break somebody's neck? It may work 99 times, but that one time it doesn't. Somebody loses their life or paralyzed for what reason when there's 1,000 other techniques you could have learned. That goes back to what I'm saying. If you have basic mandate, that's the same for the whole mandate means the training.
Sure.
And the reoccurring training is current and deals with current affairs. Like you have some departments haven't changed. If you get outside of Metro Atlanta, deputies pulling you over the same way they always did. Because goddamn it, in my county, it's still good. And that's a Black deputy in South Georgia.
You sound just like him, though.
So that's what occurs. And they haven't skipped a beat because they don't have any constituents I shouldn't say that matter, but don't have a voice. In Atlanta, everybody has a voice. Everybody knows. If you stop,
Because we got a mayor named Keisha.
Yeah, Mayor Bottoms is excellent. It doesn't have nothing to do with the name. She's thorough. She's always been thorough.
Yeah.
And she's been involved
Yeah, she
in
is.
government for a while. And we have, other people. Atlanta's a chocolate city, but it's also a white city and people that are forward thinking.
Right.
So there's the White Houses in Atlanta. We're more, and Fit too, we talked about it last week and I'll state it again. I think it'll help a lot if the police forces mirror the communities they police more.
Yeah.
And if you do that, it would make a difference. But I tell you what, I don't know how many times you have white officers that come in that they grew up in areas, and there's supervisors, they'll tell you,
Right.
and that never grew up around black people. And you can see the positive way. Hell, there's more zebra couples, interracial couples in Atlanta probably than
You did not call them zebras.
yeah, politically correct. Sorry about that. I'm just saying, but but it's like
He said that out loud, but
Right.
just understand that the views that you see over there
it's just
are not the
it's
views
just
of
me.
Classic
I said
Conversations.
that
and
jokingly.
JT
I
and
said
Love.
that jokingly.
I know, bro.
But like I said, there's not that people, and I hate it because the hardest job in America right now is being a white officer. Because in a black city or any city that has any sizable, even if it's not, if there's only one black guy in the city and you're in Seattle, you're catching hell when you arrest him because whatever he says, automatically, and it's a good reason because of all the wrong things that have occurred, they're in a big microscope.
Sure.
But the hatred isn't there like people
But
think it is.
it's like I think it was Chris Rock who said it, is that there's some jobs we just can't have bad apples. And I think he used the example of an airline. Like you just can't have. Well, most of our pilots like to land, but there's just a few of them.
Right.
That's probably going to crash the plane. So there's just some that you just don't have. There should be zero tolerance, and I think policing is one of those where we just can't afford.
And teachers.
Teachers, yeah. Anybody working with children, working with people, absolutely. We just can't have it.
Pay the least amount of money.
Right, exactly. And I think that I don't think that. And the reason I think that it's systemic is because we see issue after issue after issue. Now, while it may not necessarily be the same police department per se, we see these issues kind of keep coming up. It's nothing new to the point where it's almost like, oh man, another one, type of thing. I listened to probably about 25% of last week's show. And I don't know if you guys touched on the issue of defunding the police. Did you guys? Was that a part of the
Briefly, yeah.
conversation? Okay.
Makes no sense for us.
Well, of course, for you.
No.
But-
When I said for us, I meant as an African American.
Okay,
Because, see,
all right.
now that's
And-
what I talked about last week. There's too many people sitting up in here and other places making assumptions that the poor black Americans, and not just black Americans, poor whites, anybody that lives on a lower economic scale, that's surrounded by predators, when you defund the police and you're living in Buckhead or you're living in the right end of Cleveland or the north side of Chicago or you're out suburbs, you can defund the police. Yes, you can put in touchy-feely programs. But the reality of it is, if you look across the board, Baltimore included,
Let me ask you this.
violent crimes increased since
What does defund the police mean to you? Like, how? Let's make sure that we're all on the same definition.
Defund the police, to me, doesn't work. And I'm just talking purely, and I've been in leadership since '96. And I've had budgets of SWAT. I've had training budget, and it's divvied out between the units, and you can put your people in for training. I've always been in specialty units, so I get more funding for my people to go. Pretty much, if we put in for it, we're going to get it. And you get them out in training. Training is the issue. If you start taking away from the budget, what areas? Okay, they can't cut 911 calls because that's the most important part of law enforcement, and that's where the largest amount of money goes. Your FOD, your Field Operations Division, which is your zones, precincts. I don't know what they call them where you come from, but that's where most of the money goes. Now you got to look at a large part of that money is vehicles, maintenance of vehicles, gas. Now you got to put in officer salaries. That's what has hurt law enforcement because defund the police, where do you think they automatically shimmy at? Is paying the officers. And so they get everything else. So when you start about defunding police, where would you think they could take money from? And I can refute any of it.
My first thought would be, I mean, I read a report, and I wish I could bring it up quickly. Wasn't totally prepared for this particular conversation, but some of the money that the amount of money that they kind of spend on weapons in some departments, the type of weapons that are used, are kind of military grade weapons and things like that. And of course, that's not a cheap thing. And it's like, we're a fucking community. We're not, this ain't Iraq. We're spending.
I would say that's a liberal left talking and people that are anti-gun. But the reality of it is, fully automatic M4, fully tricked out, that's light kit, everything on it. And the only people that carry those guns on the department are SWAT officers. They must have those weapons. That weapon is ordered once in maybe an 8-year cycle. Weapons don't wear out. So that's not something, that's a one-time occurrence. That's not something that reoccurs. And the only other weapons that departments buy is a sidearm, and that's purchased dealing with the individual officer. So that's not a real concern. That's people assume it's a big ticket item, but it's not. You might catch it as a big ticket item if the department's getting ready to buy new sniper rifles. That happened under me. And they're very expensive, like $8,000 or $9,000 each. But those are only 4 weapons.
So for the ones you just described, not the sniper rifles, the ones you just described, the M4s, how much are those per weapon?
About $4,500, tricked out.
But let me say this.
There's not a lot of money when you're talking about
I think
20 guns.
I think when they, the concept of defund the police, I think it's misunderstood from the public because, and MJ, said it last week quite a bit in terms of, when you defund the police, what you're doing is you're taking away the active police officers and the active policing. You're just going back to just straight answering 911 calls, and then you're no longer you're handicapping those police officers from actually policing. You're not going to get those seizures, those big drug cases. You're not going to get a lot of those things. You're only going to get officers going to answer 911 calls, and defunding the police meaning and the reality of it is, if they defund the police, all you're doing is cutting salaries. You're cutting the number of people they're going to hire. You're not going to get what I think the public is expecting. You know what I mean? You don't defund the police department. If anything, you make more funds towards certain situations that can better the police department and better policing. You know what I mean? Like I was mentioning earlier, we talked about this many times, including last week, in terms of having people that can help for special needs people out on the scenes, as opposed to dialing 911 and having police officers respond to somebody that's mentally challenged. Right. You know what I mean? Those are where funds need to go to. Other departments nationwide, you know what I mean? And I'm glad to hear Atlanta has something now that they can call people out, but everybody doesn't have that. Right. You know what I mean? So you don't defund, you just appropriate things, you know what I mean? You need more money to make those things happen. You know what I mean? Because I think there's money? Absolutely. Because when you say more, when you say less money, you're saying less policing. You're saying less police officers. And that sounds great if you're a criminal. Oh yeah, less police officers, that's wonderful. But what about, and he mentioned it many times, what about the folks who live in these communities who don't want to be surrounded with crime all the time? What about those people? That's who you're gonna hurt. Those people.
I heard something.
That's who you're gonna hurt. You're gonna hurt those people.
Right before I walked out about gas money. What officers get to drive their cruiser home?
In Atlanta, the only one are special units. Maybe SOS, any unit that has to respond back to the city, SWAT, fugitive units like that. But the regular beat officer, some of the ones that actually live in the community are allowed to do it, but there's too few cars, and we have so many few cars that they're not allowed to do that. The study's done where it lasts longer. When you're talking about a 2,000-man department, that'd be 2,000 cars. Wouldn't be cost effective.
Right, because I've seen police cars in driveways.
Smaller agencies.
Yeah. And I've wondered, Why they call at the house? So that would be because they're
Visibility.
most
They want
likely they're in
visibility.
visibility.
Yeah. Visibility. They have a take-home car because what it actually works.
They
because
at their
now that
girlfriend
guy's
house.
driving the car around. The officer's driving the car around, so he's going to be visible. But to say something before you leave, sir,
Ain't
to
going away.
add to that is what we're not looking at, and I'm a champion of the people. And I think the very people that get hurt from liberal views like defund the police are the very people that everybody say they want to help. Because you got to realize, if any major city decides to defund the police, like if Baltimore decides, okay, we're cutting back on police.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sir, on the end. What city do you live in, sir?
Yeah,
Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, Columbus, okay.
Oh, yeah.
If they had to start defunding the police in Columbus, say cut up $3 million off their budget, okay, where do you think the policing numbers are going to stay the same? And where do you think the numbers of police on patrol are going to go down?
Well, here's my thing with that.
It's going to be a long tax.
Right, it's going to be along taxes, but also when you really think about how the effects of defunding the police and less police being on the street, you have to think about what are the relationships in the communities, because that's where it's truly going to affect. I know one of my questions I had as I was sitting here thinking was, what kind of training around trauma does police departments have? Right? How are they trained to deal with those people who are heavy slated in, past traumas, history of being disenfranchised by police officers, which means now they're going to react to you as a police officer, waiting. Well, not necessarily waiting, but they're reacting to you based on past history versus
Real and perceived, yes.
So versus, what you can provide them or what you're trying to accomplish at that moment. And how much training, even the Atlanta Police Department does around that.
Every year.
What
We started with verbal judo years ago, and it's evolved. We have people from psych services come. You can call them out to the scene anytime there's a traumatic incident, not just involving police officers. If, say, for whatever reason, you go in a house and the parents were killed in front of the kids, we have people we can call out to deal with the victims assistants that can come out to the scene. But like I said,
But now,
we're a department with big
is that?
pockets.
Let me ask you this: is that part of the police budget, or is that part of the state budget in regards to the
City.
dealing with the children?
That's a city budget.
Or city budget, but that's not a part of the police
Yeah,
budget.
it's not the police
so,
budget.
So now, last
budget
week,
comes from the city.
what was the last week? The budget for the police basically comes from the city budget, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So state police, it would come from state.
State.
County police, it would come from the county, that type of deal. So we've already come across that Atlanta, we up there. We Gucci. We
Sets
doing
the
pretty
bar
good
in some cases,
We're doing pretty good in training, that type of thing. So these rural counties, not only in Georgia but across the United States. Like last week, I was saying reallocate. Okay, Atlanta, funds are used where it needs to be used at. But in some of these smaller, what do you want to call it,
Municipalities.
Exactly.
what he said. In those areas, there's most likely some money being used where it could probably be used someplace else. So I get when you're saying, because I understand you done lifetime Atlanta PD. So you know what's happening there. But Classic Conversations with JT and Lo is not trying to just be about Atlanta. We're trying to be about everything. So where I'm from in North Carolina, I know that money is being used wrong. There's cops sitting at home with their cars, and those, I'm laughing, those cruisers sitting in their yard, has nothing to do with visibility. It has to do with not having to drive their car back and forth to work. And I'm sure that happens in other smaller areas. So why can't it be like a reallocation of funds in those type of areas, in those type of cities? Say that word again.
Municipalities.
Yes, you got it.
Yeah.
But to your point though, rural counties aren't killing niggas.
Actually, they are.
Black men, no.
I
I hate that word. Use
African Americans.
African, okay.
Black people.
Populations. Yeah.
or the unclean. If
You know what?
referring to-
I actually
That's what I mean.
All right. I'll accept that. I'll take that.
Not at the, at least not at the rate.
Not the rate. Not
Yeah.
the right.
That
I mean, yeah. No, when I look at the I hate to say killings, but that's what it's been a lot. The killings, the shooting of unarmed black people across the nation.
Timely.
There has to be in these. Say the word again.
Municipalities.
You done messed it up.
municipalities,
I've been drinking.
Municipalities, but
principalities.
Look, you got low on that cup.
let me leave
Hold
that
on,
alone.
let me see.
Municipalities.
Hold on. Let me slow it down. Municipalities.
Municipalities.
Yeah. I mean, I say reallocation, and I understand that in some of the bigger metropolitan areas, the monies are used. Most likely, I would say 97% of the monies are used the right way. 95% is used the right way. But in some
I need
of
to
these
see the budget to say that.
smaller,
Yeah, I'm about to say,
and some
I
of these
wouldn't give it that
smaller
much.
areas, it's probably a lower number. So I like what you've been saying, and Angelo said this a minute ago about a national training for police officers to go to, and then they go back to whatever municipalities that they're in, whether it be small or big, whatever it is. Then they go back there and they get the basis of it nationwide in one center, and then they go back to their municipalities. Did I say it right?
That time.
Got it. Boy, that's 3 times straight. Tell I went to the bathroom. I'm cleared up a little bit, but I just feel that there's money there. I just don't feel that. I ain't gonna say I feel. I don't believe that it's being used the right way in every municipality.
That's a
Yeah.
political situation. They didn't drain
Yeah,
the swamp.
yeah. So
definitely
so now we get back to what. Go ahead, say it.
So-
the vote, the V word.
Oh, the vote. Oh, yeah.
Hey man, it comes back to voting. It comes back to voting. It comes back to voting. I mean, we've had some people on the phone that in here that just not in here, right? Just on the phone that basically said they're not voting because it doesn't help their community. And the crazy thing is, I understand what they're saying because I felt that way.
Because from a historical perspective,
Yeah, I felt that way. I felt no matter what I vote, I still got to pay my light bill. I still got to pay that bill. It ain't gonna change nothing that I do.
Georgia Power
But-
won't give a nigga lights for free.
Don't
Jeezy.
say that word. He don't like the word. Don't say that
I'm
word.
quoting Jeezy. I'm just trying to be authentic.
He's rapping
to,
right now. He's just doing
Yeah,
rap.
Jeezy,
So,
yeah.
but it comes back to that about putting people in place to carry out our needs. You have to research and look at that word again, hold people accountable. I mean, we talked about holding people accountable in regards to law enforcement, but we got to hold people accountable in regards to
Political office.
policies and procedures and all that type of stuff also.
I want to throw this in the mix because I think there's an assumption by people in general that what reduces crime is police or police presence, and I'm not sure that is an accurate statement. I think people
Not at all.
assume that when we have, and so when you talk about reallocating funds, I know some people don't like the term defund the police. Reallocating some funds from police departments into other community types of resources could also help too. And so I think that a part of what we have to look at is, what does the police do effectively? How do we help them to do more of that? And then the things that they really don't do effectively and that they weren't necessarily meant for, how do we get other people to handle those types of things? And so when you look at, the average call that a police goes out on, or the amount of calls, how many should the police actually be there? Is their presence should they really be there versus could the community or individual or family benefit from someone else that has a different skill set than police officers, because we're assuming that the skill set of police officers is wide and varied, and it's, in my opinion and in my experience, it's very narrow what they're actually really good at, but we're asking them to do a whole bunch of stuff. And so generally when the economy does better, according to most studies, crime actually generally goes down.
Of course.
And so a lot of it has more to do with the economy than it does a police presence or more police officers or more weaponry or more cars or more visibility or any of that kind of stuff. It doesn't have a direct link or correlation to crime, and we think that it does.
Yeah,
there's a correlation, but it's
yeah.
not the direct link that sometimes people think that it is.
What it is, because most people don't truly understand policing. They watch TV, and that's your idea of what policing is.
Law and order, SUV, baby.
It's actually it's such a small.
I was talking about the car, Jamal.
It's such a small part of law enforcement. The majority of what officers do day in and day out, if you work in 3 or 1, you're going to have at least one sheet every day of calls to service. That's times how many officers are on that shift. So that's where most police officers' time is spent. That doesn't deter crime. What deters crimes is proactive units and proactive policing, be it bike patrols or Apex, which is a narcotics-based unit. But the issue with that, you go back to a victimless crime, and you're spending how many man hours do you account for going after victimless crime? That's some of the things they can look at. But you can't do that in all communities, because if you look at violence in Atlanta and shootings, a lot of them result directly out of either bad drug deals, robbing drug dealers, or robbing somebody that was getting ready to go to a drug deal, or an argument because you're high. So those type things, I think defunding the police affects poor African Americans or poor in general in disproportionate amounts. And you have all these liberals marching saying defund the police, but you got to look at it. Very going back.
Are you a Republican?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay. I mean, you just.
No, but I said no, but liberal, moderate, and right is two totally different things.
Yeah,
because what I mean liberal is when you throw the baby out with the wash. You want what you want, but you don't look at it realistically. Yeah. And what I mean by that, when you have African American neighborhoods,
I think conservatives do the same thing, though.
Let me hear my.
But I get your point.
What I'm saying is when you look at when you look at the amount of violence that's occurring in those areas, and the only time politicians want to pay attention to it is when it's time to get their votes.
Correct.
And then when everybody else runs back, when there's not a police shooting, and everybody else runs back and goes home, you have those African Americans that have to live amongst the unclean that you mentioned a while ago, and you mentioned. And those unclean are rampant wild. Last week we had officers call in, and I said, you can take 10 people out of just about any neighborhood, and crime rates have dropped 75%.
Sure.
Easy. But that's proactive policing. And that's what is affected when you attack the officers and not the system. Because what you do, you get officers that are jaded, meaning no matter what I do, it's already a hard job. Right. It's already a stressful job. Because think about it, if you had to go to, say, some Texas town that was 99% white, and there's Confederate flag, not saying it's not, but just say this imaginary town had Confederate flags everywhere, and they still had trees that during a certain era were used to hang African Americans, and you had the police in that. And there was just an open hostility against you. And you knew anything you do was going to be a riot, getting upset, or you were going to be suspended with pay. See, that's the new thing they do. They'll suspend you with pay, even though they know you acted and it was justified. They won't stand up and say, no, our officer was right. We're going to let him keep him on the job until the job's done. Now they automatically suspend you with pay, and you're on the desk. So that's costing you money because you can't work your side jobs. And it's taken away from your family's income. Plus, it's the stigma that you get. Now you forever ruined an officer. Like in Atlanta, they can say what they want, but it's going to be hard to kickstart the Atlanta Police Department again after they pull the rug from under those officers. You can look at the crime stats. If somebody does open records, and get the actual crime stats and arrest numbers from prior to and now. And it's totally different. And the thing is, it's not affecting Buckhead. It's not affecting the upper end of Zone 4, Flamingo Road, and those areas. It's affecting Zone 1, Zone 3, the very people everybody are worried about.
So it's not affecting where JT and Low lives, right?
Exactly. So, that's my point that we're doing. And
Michael
people got to
Andre.
think about this when they do it. We're like,
He said that left.
Hey man, we
You see,
don't
he
want to
said
talk
that.
about where he lives.
Yeah, why I said.
yeah, so, that's just how it goes. And I think the hardest thing is that we're turning into haves and have-nots in our community. And the haves like to play games with the have-nots' ass. We write checks that ass has the cash. And the reality of it is, I know because I used to go to community meetings. I talk to the people in the community. Like I told them last week, I hit every grill on a Saturday if I'm at work. And so, like I said, most officers want to be involved in the community and are involved in the community. But what you've done is stymied it now because it's an outright blanket. Every cop's bad.
So with that statement, how do you improve police, and you probably talked about this last week, police and community relations?
Best way to do it, once again, not to the Atlanta City Sworn. I know it seems like it, but we have a citizen police academy where you have community leaders actually go to abbreviated police academy where they do a shoot, don't shoot, and things of that nature. And like I said, if you guys are a national syndicated talk show or even not, you could approach our chief about actually getting to go to shoot, don't shoot next time you come down. And I would love to have that, and we talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be just like everybody else.
Wait.
Oh, shoot.
They're guests. What? Why have you invited us to these?
Oh, okay. Well, I know
what the
Lowe's
hell?
don't know what to do, but and you got to.
Yeah, man.
I have a clarifying question. Does my criminal record preclude me from participating in this?
Well, it depends what the crime you were convicted of. That's what it really.
No, you know what? Actually, the crazy thing is, before you said that, I would love to attend something like that. So, Angelo, make sure you put me in contact with this man.
If you do,
so
you'll
that
get basically
we can make that
you'll get a
connection.
view
I would love
of
to do it.
all things law enforcement from the report writing. You'll learn about case law that leads to your ability to write affidavits, search and seizure, when you can serve a warrant, no knock warrants, how that occurs. Plus, the biggest thing I think that the biggest eye opener for them is when they actually do shoot, don't shoot, and that's when you stress them out a little bit, you make them run, because that's what typically leads up to a police shooting or a high. It's like raising their adrenaline level a little bit, and then they have to pull a gun and within seconds decide if they're going to shoot or not shoot. Many a person has died with a cell phone in their hand and let them assimilate.
Yeah.
And those are the things they go through. And now you have a camera on your chest, so officers are second guessing. You got a lot of officers that are taking tasers to gunfights.
Right, but I think that's the select few who are able to experience that. We're talking about
The
change
the community.
Yeah, the community as a whole.
I think since we bring just about everything else into, I really think as part of like Georgia's civic class, and if every state is mandated by law to teach the basic law of the state to end police search and seizure, what probable cause is, and teach it in high school. Make it a class they start taking their 10th grade, 11th grade, and senior years. And when they do that, they're going to be more qualified to know what their rights are. Because a lot of times while African Americans go to jail, they let their mouth override their tail section. In other words, they're stopped on a basic traffic stop, but they do or say something afterwards that leads to their arrest, and they could have went. And all you have to simply say, a lot of people don't know, is say, officer, am I free to go? Are you finished? Not the stuff everybody's doing now, antagonizing the officers, because you're going to catch that right one. And it's going to be tragic. Yeah, he may go to jail, but you lost your life. But basically, if you go over what the rules of engagement are, how you should react, it makes a difference.
So
Jamal got a curfew and his PO is about to call, so he need to leave the show real quick now.
Ankle bracelet dinging.
hey, yo, come back up. I want to holler at y'all real quick because we're about to close out. Yeah, we're about to close out.
Gotta give a proper goodbye.
Wow, you said a lot right there, man. See, this is why we can't get to another subject, because we always end with something good to go to the next week. Whew, boy. The antagonizing part. We got to touch on that. We got to come back. We got to come back to that because, we got to come back to that. So, another Tuesday with
Y'all got any last comments?
Classic
fellas?
Conversations. Daily podcast with my jam people. Hey man, I promise you, they're like Larry, Curly, and Mo. Please excuse them. One of y'all can come up here. They're like, I'm telling you, they're like Larry, Curly, and Mo.
He got the face for radio. He shouldn't be on camera.
I shouldn't be this close to a police officer or even a former one. I just like in my spirit, my crescendo.
You're shunning now.
So look,
No, it's been a good conversation. Though. It really has. So I appreciate it.
I enjoyed it also.
Yeah, JT is always good seeing my brother.
Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Give your last statements, how they can follow you. I know all of y'all gonna say the same thing on how they can follow you, but go ahead.
Yeah, you can follow us at T Daily Jam. You mostly just want to follow me because I'm the smartest person of the group. But all our social media platforms at T Daily Jam, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Or you can follow us to Cigar City Ladies Night tomorrow night. We'll be there.
Wait a minute, but you were talking really fast. I know the cop is up here. Just calm down. Calm down.
He set me off when he asked me about my previous case. You know, I thought that I put that behind me. I thought that the court system was a rehabilitative thing, and he asked me about my criminal record, and I've been scared ever since.
Look at me for a second. Don't look over there. Don't look over there.
Don't look in the light. Don't look in the light.
Don't look over there. Don't look over there. Don't look over there. Now look right there and take a deep breath, and then let everybody know how they can follow you.
I got you. Okay. America.
We wish.
No, you can follow us at The Daily Gem, at T Daily Gem on any social media platform. You can also listen to our podcast, which we are in our third season now, on wherever you listen to your podcasts, Spotify, Apple, Google. The Daily Gem podcast. It's a great podcast. A lot of great times, fun, humor, music. What you saw here tonight, even with a serious subject like accountability, we still inject a lot of humor in our conversations because we believe that helps.
My man, go ahead, Mr. 8 Hour. Go ahead and talk.
It was great being with you guys again.
Yeah.
We got to do this again.
We have to. All right.
But Jamal's wife about to FaceTime him, and so he got to get home. You see him outside the house, he in trouble.
Hey, man.
No, but for real, we really appreciate it, man. I love the show. I love being here. I love watching you guys. It was great meeting you, bro. I love to hear it. Had a great time, always.
No doubt. I'll see y'all Cigar City tomorrow night.
Cigar City.
Ladies' night,
yeah.
It's cold outside.
I was going to say, is the ladies going to come out?
It's cold, bro. We're going to have to be inside.
Black people don't come out in the cold. I know.
We'll see what happens. I'll let
it
you
ain't
know.
raining, the ladies will come out.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Might have to tell you to come to the Lemonade Lounge.
We can do that too then.
Yeah, we can work that out.
MJ.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it.
Hey, listen, you gave some great information on the Breonna Taylor thing. You know, I think it was good to get some just some background information, some law enforcement type information, because I think a lot of times people just don't understand a lot of the do's and don'ts. You know, you only get the brief narrative that the media presents, and naturally they want to do something to stir things up, but you know, it's important for people to know the law and what you can and can't do, and some of the procedural stuff. You know what I mean? You know, and I think that's very, very critical in a lot of these cases that we've discussed on this podcast. You know, just the legal information and the things that the police officers are doing, although it appears from what, you know what I mean, from the outside looking in, might be wrong, but when you get to procedural things, it gives a different atmosphere. It doesn't make people feel better. You know, anytime, like I said, there's a loss of life, it's dramatic, it's traumatic. You know what I mean? But, you know, but there's also some background stuff that needs to be explained. That particular situation, I think there was some stuff that was probably not done appropriately, and I think that'll come out in the wash. You know, I hope it does anyway. You know, but we as a people have to understand those laws and those procedural situations, because we come down on the police officers so hard, and I've said 1,000 times on this podcast, we fight from the bottom up as opposed to the top down, and a lot of these issues can be resolved if we attack the top, which goes back to voting, which goes back to the who's in office type situations, procedurals type situations. Early voting starts December 14th, and I'm gonna bring it up. Last day to register December the 7th. If you haven't done it yet, you still have time. Get it done. If you want to make change, that's how you make it. It works. It's shown that it works, but we have to take advantage of it. But from a people standpoint, our people have to, you hate seeing people, and I'm sure you had the experience many a time. People say, "Well, I know the law," yeah. And then you hear what they say, and it's like everything but the law. You know what I'm saying? Everything you're saying is so wrong, it ain't even funny. You know what I mean? And you put yourself in a situation, like you say, write that check. You know what I mean?
Gotta cash. I can't cash, but you gotta cash it.
Yeah, because you just talked it. You know what I mean? So, but anyway, December 7th, last day to register. December 14th, early voting, man. Let's get out there and vote.
Echo on my man here, Angelo, man. January 5th, do not let New Year's Eve keep you from getting out there and voting. Y'all see the commercials. Shit is crazy. Nonstop. For real. Shit is getting on my nerves. I'm actually recording shows, so I ain't got to look at the damn commercials. I already know what I'm voting for. But anyway, make sure that your voice is heard. The law, yes, we do not know the law as a people. I think we need to research it more. As you said, mess around saying things, you writing checks at your ass, can't cash, but you gotta cash it, because jail, you gonna cash it. You gonna give them their money. So watch yourself with that. Appreciate you, man. For real. The Breonna Taylor thing, I'm gonna keep saying her name. I still think there's some accountability to be held there. The officers that were actually pulling the trigger, I almost want to say that they got caught up in some bullshit. There's some accountability somewhere that needs to be held. And I'm hoping that happens. We here, Classic Conversations, man, we just have conversations. It's our opinions. We're not speaking law. Today I was speaking from a documentary that was, aired on BET in 2020. But for real, there's a lot of things out there that we can improve. I've been saying it for the longest. We have to clean up our own backyard, because we actually still have the ear of America. But if our own backyard is not clean, hey man, they're not gonna listen to us. So for some of y'all that's out there fucking up the backyard, chill. For real, man. I mean, we just doing stupid shit. Real talk. Sometimes we got to, look in the mirror and just recognize, some of the shit we doing is stupid. Damn, I'm cursing a lot. But, tonight was a good show. It was actually able to get some points across. We still going to keep talking about it and understand we are not against the police. Please understand that part. But there are a couple of bad apples out there that, that makes it hard for some of the good apples out there. You know what I'm saying? So, as Angelo said, we have to attack the policies. How do we do that? We do that by voting. We do that by just looking at what somebody is consistency of somebody doing something the wrong way. Take notes of it. Find out what's going on. Reach out to the supervisors and keep reaching out if you have to.
File your complaint.
Get that complaint out there, and if you don't get an answer, keep filing it, man. Hold your people accountable. Your city councilmen, your community leaders, everything. Hold them accountable for it. That's about. Oh, shit. Hey, man, you don't know this. Classic Conversations and JT has actually been nominated for ATL's hottest radio podcast out there in Atlanta. I had no idea. And on top of that, we came in the top 10. So we'll find out this weekend whether or not we won. So y'all give it up for that.
Who?
You know, I had no idea at all. Just found out yesterday. And also me, I am actually nominated as ATL's hottest host, ATL's hottest style. There's another one. I forgot the other
Pretty
one.
Ricky is what they call him.
There's 2 other ones, but I'm also nominated with my wife as ATL's hottest couple. And you know, we do what we do. We smoke cigars. So I appreciate everybody out there that voted for us. But I think that's gonna do it for us. Next week, I promise y'all, man. What's the date? What's the date of next Tuesday?
I don't know what the day is, so I'm not the one to ask. 8th. Okay.
I promise y'all, we're gonna start at 8:30. Even if it's me by myself.
Oh, what you trying to say, man? I was here at 8:30.
No, when you was over there at 8.
I was here. I walked in this building.
I was here.
I know I beat them both. Here.
I was here at 8:17. Next week, we're gonna start on time. I promise y'all that. So
Y'all remember that. You hear that, Dwayne? We're gonna start with or without 8:30.
So that another Tuesday, man. Classic Conversations with JT and Low. I'm JT, that's Low. I'm me, and he is him. We out, you dig?
Tell me you mad at me, cause I can't deal. And it's hard to live without my brother. And it's hard to forgive, but still I pray. Feel the water flow.